special budget workshop at Henderson County Fiscal Court. We will begin with a quick pledge of allegiance. Please stand and join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you to the members of Fiscal Court.
Roll call.
Oh, go ahead and, call the roll.
Okay. Manager Southern?
Here.
Manager Moran?
Here.
Manager Putman?
Here.
Manager McCollum? Here. Manager Berry? Here.
Just to remind everybody, this is workshop, not a special called meeting, so it's, well, we're not going to take a vote at this meeting. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, gotcha. So at our last workshop, if you recall, we went line by line through the general fund line items with each of the department heads and elected officials. Seemed to have no objection there. And then we had some questions about the jail budget, and subsequent fiscal court meeting continued, had a couple questions. And so Master Putman suggested we have another workshop to iron that out, and I agreed. And I wanted to point out, before we really nail down on the jail budget, I wanted to point out a change I'm suggesting in the general budget, the general fund budget, based on feedback from more than one magistrate on the amount of blacktop in our road fund. And after studying that a little bit and thinking about not only what we could do in this budget for blacktop, but also what the possibilities might be with federal stimulus money coming next year with blacktop money potential. I want to suggest to the court that we add $250,000 to the blacktop line item in the road budget, and the funding for that would come from anticipating a little bit increase in revenue on the general fund side. This is in the document that you have in front of you. We would increase the anticipated revenue from real property tax from $2.8 million to $2.9 million. We would increase the anticipated revenue from occupational tax from 2.5 million up to 2.7. It was 2.6 in the budget proposal a couple weeks ago. Now it's 2.7. That's a total of 200,000. Then we would increase insurance premium tax, anticipated revenue total of 50,000 up to 2.8. So that creates $250,000. Even with those increases, the general fund revenue budget is still well within our expectations and well under the average revenue that we've created in the general fund over the last 3 years of well over $17 million. So we're still creating that buffer we need from expected revenues versus budgeted revenues to handle any emergencies, and again to begin to create what we could use as a buffer against future pension increases if we needed a couple years to tread water while we figured something else out. Does anybody have any questions about that change? And I think, Tim Southard was one of the ones that most was concerned about that, and Tim, I think we agreed that that helps a lot.
Yes. Thank you.
Consulted with Mr. Hubiak about that, and he's aware, and he's all for being able to spend more money on blacktop, I'm sure. Any other questions about that?
Does that solve the blacktop problem?
No. I mean, there's no...
No.
I know what you're going to say next with our state representative in the room, but solving the blacktop problem is a...
That never crossed my mind, but it's a good idea. Can you tell us what we need? If we got 400 miles of blacktop, how long blacktop lasts, and what we really need to be putting down?
Now, at all due respect, I've got to end this meeting in 1 hour. I've got to fly to...
Right. And Charlie, I do have that information, and I'd be glad to meet with you personally and go through it all for you for your educational value.
Well, can't you do it real quick? Isn't it about 12 miles each?
Yes.
Lifespan about 12
We
years?
have 330 miles of hard surfaced road, and you take that and you
Divide it
divide
by
that
12.
by 15-year average life.
Okay, 15.
Okay.
So about 24 or 5 miles is what we need to be putting
That's
down.
what we need to be doing.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's a tall order across the state.
It is.
Both for counties and the state government. I mean, it's a problem.
And
So,
I mean,
We still fall behind.
I understand we're falling behind that, but we also have to we have to watch our pennies.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I appreciate what we've added, and I feel good.
Yeah.
I'd rather be getting what Charlie's talking, but.
A
I know
million,
it's-
yeah. Then, now, the good news is, again, with the, at least for the next 2 years or year, federal funding could be coming down the pike that would help us tremendously, because not only do we have the ARPA funds that we should be collecting within the next 12 months, but also moving through Congress now is an infrastructure program that could provide more infrastructure money for states and counties.
Now, my understanding with the ARCA money you're talking about, if we have carryover with that, we're going to apply it toward the blacktop too.
We could, there could be ways, yes, we could apply towards blacktop. There could be ways, yes.
Okay.
Still have to wait and see some more guidance from Treasury, but I think there could be ways. Yes, sir. Any other questions about that? Any other questions on the general fund? On the jail fund, I asked Amy to give us the very latest, and in this packet, under appropriations and revenue, are here, updated budget, and Amy, I'm sorry, you want to come up? This anticipates using the Shift 16, correct? That's the model. We have already agreed to increase pay for entry-level deputies, and this lines out, with a couple tweaks I know that you made, the rest of the appropriation budget and revenue budget. So anything you want to talk about there that might be just a little different than what we saw 2 weeks ago?
It's about the same. You did get the pay scale for the different ranks. Did you all get a copy of that?
Yeah, for this document, what we have are just appropriations and
Okay.
revenue. Yeah.
The State Department of Corrections has given us our medical allotment numbers, so those have been updated, jail operations, and the local corrections assistants. So we went down in one line and up in another line, so it just kind of balanced out.
So the overall totals are pretty close to what they were last time.
They're pretty close. We updated the federal per diem based on the Missouri contract.
The prisoners you're just receiving now, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And again, I want to remind everybody that Amy was required to budget for the full complement of employees she would have if she had, full employment, something like 85 deputies, of which right now there are only 50, a little over 50 in hand. So the odds are, we will never hire that many in the next year. So it inflates her budget a bit, but hopefully we will be able to spend as much as we take in at least in the next year in real costs.
It's budgeted for 87 full-time and 3 part-time.
Yeah. So that's why her budget looks a little inflated, and she had to use some of her reserve to balance it as she's required to, but the odds of spending that much money on pensions and salaries are low. Just the reality.
When's the last time you was fully staffed?
Never.
Yeah, I mean, Kurt knows, never.
So chances are you're not going to spend this.
No, no.
To give you an example, this year she had budgeted $937,000 for retirement, I think was her cost, and you've spent $466, not quite 55%.
Almost half. Yeah.
So that's the reality.
We've had quite a few interviews this week. However, many of them don't qualify to work at the jail.
I'm going to leave Amy up here in case you have questions, if you don't mind.
Amy, at what point does the state look at, they say, jailer, you're 50 people short? At what point do they say, well, you know what, we can't send you any more inmates, or the feds, either one? Do they, I'm sure they look at that, right?
They do, and they look at the fact that we have a building closed, we've had a building closed for over a year, and they look at the number of employees you have, the hours that they're working, and to make sure that they're getting adequate time off. And we can hire people, we could hire 10 people this week, but it takes time to get training. It does. And, you know, every day that you're there, you learn something new. So they spend a lot of time trying to circumvent the system, and the deputies have to stay on top of it.
Sure.
This is putting in your raises that we talked, okay.
Yes, sir.
Amy, do your part-timers get vacation and
No, sir. They
Any-
can take unpaid time.
any benefits?
No.
Beth, any questions? Tim, looked like you were studying.
No, I'm fine.
Just trying to soak it all in.
Do you need more
Brady,
time to-
just at this, the way you're staffed now, it appears to be, it's not in the safest manner for the employees we got down there, correct?
Correct. They're tired. The ones that are working, they're working a lot of hours and many days in a row.
Have you implemented that mandatory overtime, or is it just they're still volunteering and trying to do what they need to do?
They are scheduled for overtime automatically, and if there's reason that they can't work the overtime on those days, then operations is working with them to try to adjust the schedules
Thank you.
as well as we can. You've got people, Captain McElfresh, she's been working shifts. Many of the overhead people have been working the shifts. And that, in combination with their regular duties, it's a lot.
Well, let me just say, we appreciate all that you're doing and all that your staff are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the proposed jail budget? Any other questions about the proposed general budget, general fund budget, or the road department budget? Okay, so, from what I'm hearing, we are prepared to take a vote on Tuesday. I'm going to ask the jailer to come back to next fiscal court meeting and make another proposal about some of the pay differences she was contemplating this fiscal year, before the end of this fiscal year, so we know more now. I think we have a clarified document that I emailed all of you. So I'd like to ask her to come back and ask again, and we can talk about it again. Because obviously there was some confusion last fiscal court meeting. That's okay. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You know, I was trying to address Brad's question about voting on it on Tuesday, and so you can sit down. I'm not trying to give you a hard time or anybody else. I'm a little more than frustrated, and I'm not. I know you are too. I know all of us are. I know the jailer is. And I know everybody. But we've got a lot of issues that we don't seem to want to talk about, and I know we don't have time for me to do my presentation that I would like to do. But I had a nice talk with the clerk. In her situation, she lost an employee to another office. she had, and I was, after we talked at the sheriff's request for raises, for 18% raises back in December and January, and we had a tie vote, and we said we wouldn't have any raises until we came here, and then I find out that there were raises, but they're legal raises because this court has no way, we don't control the constitutional offices of the sheriff and the county clerk. They can do, if we've given them a number, they can do that number, and we have no control over it. And most of those raises were in the clerk's office, and she explained that she had to raise her minimum from $14 in order to keep her people and to hire people. The same problem that the jail's having, same problem that I guess the sheriff's office is having in some respects. And so that her, what she's got, if you look at her numbers, it's actually a 7% increase. And what it is, it's 2% is what she gave those lower people to get them up to, I think, 16. And then the balance is 4%. And that's going to, the 4% that we talked about, or was talked about raises. And, but in looking at the different offices, there's different amounts of raises. One is 9.17, hers is 7. Another 6%, 7%, 38% in recycling, 8% in parks supervisor, 9% in park employees. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think our revenue is going up at those rates. So eventually that's going to cause a problem. And then, as you brought up in your presentation at the end about the retirement, I've not fully understood it until I got online after that, and then you gave me the copy of the thing. You may have given it to me in December of 19, but I can't find it. But you did give it to me, and I do have it. The chart on that thing showing those increases at 12%. Those are things that I think we need to start to think about, how we're going to fund that tremendous cost. We're talking about at least $28 million is what your number you came up with.
Well, according to that projection. Yeah.
And that projection is based on a 1% increase in salaries. Part of my presentation, I did numbers for 4% and 9%, just sort of get you an idea, and that takes you to $7 million for the 1 year, and $9 million for 9% for 1 year, and would increase that $20 million somewhere in the 30s, close to $40 million. And there's no way we've got the resources to do that and those retirements. And I just want all the department heads to start looking at that retirement, because we need your help to make this thing balance. The fiscal court, we can't do it all. One of my first thoughts was, let's get off fee pooling, and then everybody's on their own, and we'll do that. And I looked at several other counties to see how they do that, and I think Davis County, they give the sheriff a couple of $1 million to make it out. I wouldn't have a problem if we need to do that at some point in time, and if the clerk can make her retirement, and we increase your thing at the rate that our income is going up, which is, I think, around 4%. But we got to come up with a solution. We can't just keep kicking this can down the road and not facing this issue. And we've got several other issues, and a lot of it is disparity in numbers. Your staff didn't get a raise in, I think it was 17 or 18. The next year they didn't get as much as the other people did. And so we've got some things that we don't seem to want to talk about. And I think this makes you trying to cure some of that, I think. But I think it would be better to talk about it and explain why we're doing it, to get through and get the table clean. Unless we've got everybody's okay, we're where we ought to be, and now we're going to try to treat everybody fairly and equally, and it's, you know, I can see where, if you, no disrespect to the sheriff, but if you look at your numbers in 2007 when you started, it was like $600 and something thousand, and Renice's office was about $600 and something thousand. Yours is now 1.2 million, and hers is still $600 and something thousand. And if you look at your cost of your people, when she has someone who retires, the new people start out at a low pay, and and yours don't start off at the bottom. They're there, and those, I don't know how that can continue to work, and we can't double every 10 years our salaries. It will not work, and I just want us to work together and come up with a solution and look at our retirement and see how we're going to handle it. It just bothers me. I'm just here to try to help Henderson. I don't get a thing out of this. I give every dime I make away, and I just want to make it work. And right now I'm very frustrated because I don't see this thing going in a way that's sustainable. So.
I'd like to touch on that a little bit. What our employees have to be paid, and y'all have to they have to have a wage where they can survive. I mean, and we understand that. But what Charlie's saying is we're giving raises throughout the year, and then we give a 4% raise, but it's skewed. It's, instead of us doing 4%, we're ending up at 9, 10, 12, and it's really, we're getting out of whack bad, and the 12%'s coming. We know it's coming. Every year we're going to add 12% to our to pay our pensions. And when you start getting those kind of raises, you know, it really gets out of whack. And he's correct. We have got to figure out a way where we can sit down and budget for the true raise, not the 4% that we're given, or not the 13% we're given, and it looking like 4%. It's smoke and mirrors is what's going on right now across the whole department. I've looked at the numbers, and I mean, it's not just one department that's not growing. Everybody's is growing, and I understand. I want y'all to understand it's not something that's. We respect every employee we have, but we have to be able to pay y'all, and we want to be able to pay y'all years down the road. And if we go broke not meeting our obligations to the state and to the pensions, I don't know what the right answer is. I'm like Charlie, we all got to get together and figure it out.
Another elephant that we don't talk about that I keep hearing is that there are some mandatory meetings and mandatory report writing that has to be done, and that people are saying that they don't get paid for that time. We have to pay our people. That is illegal. We have to pay the overtime. And so if that's going on, it's got to stop. It's got to change.
Couple follow-up comments. I think that Master McCollum is exactly right. You know, these increasing pensions are something we have to absolutely keep a close eye on. I don't think what we're doing is smoke and mirrors, though. I got to push back a little bit on that representation of what we're doing, because we are doing, first of all, we're doing better against these projections from the Compass Group right now, thankfully. For instance, we are $257,106 to the better against these projections going into 2022, which is good. That means if you think that these projections are gospel, and they're probably as close as anybody else has got, we are ahead of the curve so far. Even with the raises we've given this year, we are ahead of the curve. And we are also continuing to keep the total budget to a point where we can continue to experience surpluses and continue to put money back to have some decision time if we get to the point where it becomes a true problem, where we really are in a crisis mode. I think we are setting ourselves up to handle it, especially when you consider that to assume that the raises in the rates we're giving this year across various departments continue at the same pattern over the next several years is incorrect. We go 1 year at a time with our pay and our raises, and we can, every year's a new year. And I think every department head and every elected official understands that. No raises are guaranteed next fiscal year or the year after that. We have to respond to what the environment is, what our revenues are, what's happening in our community. This year, in particular, though, I think that allowing the department heads to determine for their folks what they needed within reason and within our overall budget was warranted, because we decided to hold the line, give every, we dictated for the first time since I've been here that everybody got 2% raise last year because we were scared of what COVID would do to our revenues. I think that was rightfully so. We had no idea what was going to happen. That may not have been, probably was not going to be what we had normally would have done with raises. We probably would have given them more, but for COVID. So in some cases, in some ways, especially for my staff, I think, because we've been very conservative in what we paid my staff, this year was kind of a catch-up year, and I've said that more than once in these meetings, that we needed to, since we were having a very good year, despite all the challenges, we needed to reflect that in what we did for our employees this upcoming year. That's a one-time deal. We don't decide what's going to happen for the 3 years after that until we get there. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't think anything we've done from here 10 years in the past necessarily dictates what we do from here 10 years in the future.
And I agree with that, but your 2% raise was truly a 2% raise from last year to now. But the other 2 or 4% raises ended up being 9 and 10%, and when you looked at the total overall numbers.
I'm not sure I get that.
But because of raises being given throughout the year.
Well, I'm talking about, again, as was said before, within the budgets we set for the fee offices, they have the ability to give raises, but still we cap that amount on the total to keep the budget flat. So, and I don't think, if we're talking about Renisa in particular, she has never abused her budget or did something I didn't think was absolutely warranted. Again, one of the reasons is my firm belief that the elected officials are there to run their departments with our, fiscal oversight in the form of total budget. I don't want to dictate to any of the elected officials unless it's absolutely necessary, like last year when we really thought we had to be conservative to dictate to them what they can pay their people, as long as they can afford it within the budget we set. That's been my philosophy, and it's worked pretty well. The last 5 budgets have been some of the most healthy, lucrative budgets in the history of Henderson County Fiscal Court, from what I can tell. So we continue to set ourselves up, I think, to deal with the future. But you're absolutely right in saying that the current trend isn't necessarily going to be sustainable year over year. And it was never my intent. I don't think it's anybody's intent to wring this towel until there's nothing left. We have to look.
I don't either. I think they're trying to take care of their employees, and we're trying to take care of their employees too. I don't think anybody's out to do wrong.
Yeah.
It's just.
I don't either, but if one department looks at what the other departments people are making, it's hard to justify not wanting to give my employees more money because they're getting more money. I mean, we're playing off each other and hiring some of our own employees from other departments and so forth. I know the city has said they're not going to try to get any of your deputies now, which I'm pleased that the manager said that, because, I mean, that would be terrible. I mean, we're constantly fighting with that. But Brad, you're correct. We have had the last 5 years, you've done a fantastic job, and I do appreciate it. But this is the first year, to my knowledge, that we're actually paying the numbers that the state has set for the retirement. This 26.95%. This every year before they've given us a little break, they cut it back a little bit.
Just last year. This, I think, Brenda, if I'm not wrong, the 12% increase started in 16 or 17. 17, 18, 19.
But it hadn't been the total 12%, I don't think. I looked at on their website, and They have an actual, and they have what they had recommended. Now we're going with what's recommended. Now, these are the numbers. It's 26.95 this year, 30.184 next year, 33.81 in '23, 37.86 in '24, 42.41 in '25, 47.49 in '26, 53.19 in '27, and 59.578 in '28. It is going to hit us in our rear end. I mean, it is not sustainable, and we just all need to know that, and try not to be at each other's throats, but there's the graft, and it is atrocious. It is just absolutely atrocious that this is coming at us, and I just feel it's our responsibility as the fiscal court. We are supposed to manage it, that we've got to look at this, bring it to everybody's attention, and try to work together as best we can to get this solved, because I know how hard you guys are working. I know how hard it is to get good people and to keep good people, and I want to work with you. I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
And I'll make a pledge to you
Okay.
and to you and to everybody on the court and everybody in this room that pension costs will be at the forefront of all of our budgeting, especially going into 23, 24, 25, when it really, when we begin to feel this in a way that's a little bit more, you will see the gap between what we have been earning and what we have budgeted narrow over the next several years. You'll see it close.
And Brad, you are so correct about, we're in such better shape than probably maybe 80% of the other counties, I'm going to guess. And so when things get going really bad, we're going to, those counties, and that's what we're doing at the health department. I hate it. I don't like the way we're handling it. But the health departments are in the KERS, which is the Kentucky. It's only about 11% funded. And their numbers are going to like 90%. They're supposed to have gone to 90-something percent for the last 3 years. They haven't. Henderson County, well, there's at least 30 counties that will be broke in 30 days, in 3 months. And then in another 3 months, there'll be another 20 or 30 counties that will be broke. Henderson can almost make it a year because we've done exactly what you've done, Brad, as far as planning ahead and trying to have the resources to cover it. But it's not sustainable, and I don't mean to pick up on our representative because I really appreciate you being here.
I doubt this is the last time you're going to hear this conversation.
So I thank everybody.
And that is all duly, absolutely duly noted. I don't want to send the impression that any of us, I think the department heads included, don't understand this is a challenge.
No.
And for this fiscal year that we're going to vote on, I do think it was a chance for us to catch up, make sure we keep our people because it's so hard to replace them now in all departments. Reward them. Another thing to think about too is inflation is happening. I've heard this more than once at the meeting I had at the jail. Inflation is coming. That's going to hurt our employees' pockets. We are going to be able to hold our health insurance costs flat year over year this fiscal year, but that probably will not be the case next fiscal year. So that will dig into the pockets of all of our employees. Knowing that, part of my job, part of my goal was to make sure that at least for this upcoming fiscal year, they really felt the increase in the maximum way. But it is not sustainable what we've done this year. I think everybody gets that. This is a catch-up year. But after that, we will have to just see what happens. And I hope everyone understands that. I think all the department heads and elected officials realize that because they deal with rising costs in many other parts of their budget as well. So, but having said all that, from what I hear, from what I understand, we're ready to vote on Tuesday.
I still don't know where I stand. I still have problems with
Well-
with the difference in disparity in the numbers. I'm just not sure that it's justified.
Well,
Let me think about
you
it.
can vote no.
I can vote no,
You can vote no.
and it can go ahead and go through. It's
May I ask the question? Last year, or the years past, when we had the budget meetings, we had them, they presented their budgets to us and we discussed it. I really personally found that very informative instead of the way we did it this year. I know it may have been COVID or whatever, but we met as a group and they'd put it up on the screen and we'd look at it and. and
We,
discuss them.
isn't that not what we did? We didn't put on, well, we had it on the screen. It was side by side in these.
It wasn't the same. Did you,
All right.
whoops.
Now we gotta buy a new chair. Everything's off,
I'm not-
you know.
Mine's-
I really thought we did it the same way.
No, we
No,
actually
we
had a work, like a,
And-
kind of like a workshop where all the department heads
And the
got
department
together with
heads
them.
talked to us, not just to you. They talked to all of us.
Well, if
And
I
then-
remember right, and
I
I'm,
think Kyle had the spreadsheet set up where you had last year's and this year's, and then we adjusted it, and we made, where you could see what made changes.
we had them side by side. It's on paper, but, and we had each of the department heads come up and walk you through each of their line items, answering questions. I'm not sure I understand.
Well, we actually hashed it out before. We kind of went through it with them before. This year, before it was ever even presented to us. I liked it too, the
Okay,
way
well,
we did do it.
I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but workshops are there to ask questions and dig through it, and I thought that's what we did.
Well,
But,
I think we had-
we've had one workshop each, and I think it was similar format. We used to ask Kyle to put the Excel spreadsheet up on the screen because we were changing so many things and cutting so many things. We were really, the first couple years, it was really necessary because of the situation the county was in, and there was a lot of nipping and tucking done at workshops. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. We're not making changes out of necessity because we just don't know what to do next. It's very different in that respect now, and again, we've only had one workshop each of the last few years. But if you can describe to me what we did not do this time around, we'll make sure to do it next time. I really didn't think it was anything that different. And we didn't ask Kyle to do the Excel thing because it looked like it was pretty simple, and we didn't get any questions. We didn't make any real changes to the general fund line items from what I saw, from what I heard.
But we didn't get to see any of that until the day that you presented it. You
Well,
didn't give it to us ahead of time where we could actually look at it, and, I'm not trying to be critical here, but let me see what I got. That's what I do to mine, and I go through and figure out what percentage raises we got, I'm just trying to see it and justify it, and I can't do that, and
well,
the day
and-
I've got that paper in front of my hand for the first time, I'm sitting there doing this, not listening to people, or I've got to listen to them and not do it, and then come back and
Okay.
take a look at it, so.
I'll get with you before next year's workshop, and we'll make whatever adjustment you think you need to make.
Thank you.
Can I say something, Judge?
Mhm.
I just want to thank Charlie for all the work he put into this, because he emailed all the magistrates and kind of kept us update and on everything as far as the retirement and the state and the numbers as he calculated. So I really appreciate it,
Thank
Charlie.
you.
I really do. I think if we summed all this up, we're talking about retention or retaining and taking care of those people that are with us today. We know the job market at some point, if it hadn't already, is going to boom. So everybody's going to have the option of those that want to work. There's going to be opportunity, probably not already here in Henderson County. So we got to be able to retain, and we got to be able to sustain.
It's fine balance, too. Fine balance.
Yep. And I think it all come out here today, very well, matter of fact. So,
Any other comments or questions? I think we have a good budget, and we will always try to do better, and I appreciate everybody's patience. Any of the department heads or elected officials have anything they want to add? Okay, but you got me out of here before
I will say, speaking on behalf of Kyle, we've always been glad to prepare those Excel spreadsheets to have them up. We offered to do that this year. We were told it wasn't necessary, so that's why we did not. It was not something intentional on our part to not do that. So.
Yeah, I told Kyle I didn't think it was necessary because we weren't going to be doing much tweaking because of lack of funds that we used to. I wish you'd have been here the first couple of years we did this. It was quite interesting. Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
It may be interesting, wasn't the word.
It was
Yeah.
frustrating for
Yeah.
you, I know.
Okay, with that, I guess I guess I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor can leave. And thank you very much. And Amy, do please plan on bringing back your proposal next fiscal court meeting.